Good evening. Welcome to the November 2nd, 2020 meeting of the Stillwater City Council. This time I will call the meeting to order and I will ask you all to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. It's November. There's only 2 more months left of this year. We're getting there. All right, next up on the agenda is proclamations. We have a proclamation. Can you hear me? Am I on? We have a proclamation in recognition of Extra Mile Day. I'm sorry, am I?
No, you're good.
Okay. I don't know if we have anybody here on for this. Okay. Well, I'll just read the proclamation. Whereas Stillwater, Oklahoma is a community which acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when its individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And whereas Stillwater, Oklahoma is a community which encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contribution to the community by giving of themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. And whereas Stillwater, Oklahoma is a community which chooses to shine a light and to celebrate individuals and organizations within its community who, especially in these difficult times caused by the pandemic, go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And whereas Stillwater, Oklahoma acknowledges the mission of the Extra Mile America to create 500 extra mile cities in America and is proud to support Extra Mile Day on November 2nd, 2020. Now, therefore, I, William Joyce, Mayor of Stillwater, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim November 2nd, 2020 to be Extra Mile Day. I urge each individual in the community to take time on this day to not only go the extra mile in his or her own life, but to also acknowledge all of those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, country, and world a better place. I think that's a wonderful proclamation given what we've been dealing with the last week or so, and a number of folks in our community who have gone the extra mile to help their neighbors clean up. Certainly our city employees over the last week have been super busy going the extra mile to help recover from the ice storm, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, but that's a very timely, I think, proclamation for Extra Mile Day today. Okay. That takes us to item 4 on the agenda, which is the consent docket. We have minutes, the Library Trust annual report, a budget amendment reflecting donations to the public library, and approval of a public hearing on a utility easement closing. Councilors, any questions, comments, or a motion on the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilor Wedlake and a second from Vice Mayor Darlington. Teresa, please call the roll.
Mayor Joyce?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Darlington?
Yes.
Councilor Zanotti?
Yes.
Councilor Wedlake?
Yes.
Councilor Jaloski?
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. For a second there, I thought we weren't going to be able to hear from the city manager tonight, but we got that fixed. You all ready to go? All right, good. All right, item 5 is public comment on items not scheduled for public hearing. We do have one speaker here tonight to address the council. John Barry, please take the podium.
Good evening. I'd like to start off by showing my appreciation to Mayor Joyce and our city council members for their service, especially in this chaotic year of 2020. My name is John Barry, resident here in Stillwater. My company, Social Realm, specializes in building custom software that automates the mundane task of day-to-day life. We're located over at the Meridian Incubator, which makes us very fortunate to have a very low cost of operations. Unfortunately, when the pandemic hit, our entire customer base vanished, along with our revenues. When Congress decided to help struggling businesses, they calculated their grant totals based off of profits, not payroll. Unfortunately for lifestyle businesses and young businesses not posting profits, this meant no assistance from the federal government. For me, furloughing my employees and contractors was one of the biggest heartbreaks I had to go through. Eventually, to keep from losing them permanently, I dug deep in my own pockets to finance corporate operations for an additional 2 quarters. I only needed to get to where I could put my first product, a telemedicine platform, on the market. Doing so on limited funds meant that if we didn't get to where we were cash flow positive, we'd have to shut down again, this time most likely forever. One of my favorite skills to deploy is my ability to stretch money beyond its means. Frugality is not a lost art, but even I was having a hard time seeing the finish line. I found out today that I was a recipient of a grant from the city of Stillwater to help my business keep going and to keep my staff employed. I'd like to share with you how I'm going to be able to make that work. My part-time staff, after I got that phone call, were immediately offered to keep their weekly work hours that they have through the winter break we're expecting to be closed down. With their continued work on the Myoma platform, our telemedicine can now be completed. With our internally owned product finally available for beta release, we'll be able to start generating revenue again. My personal mission is to turn Stillwater into Oklahoma's technology hub. To do this, Social Realm needs products on the market generating profits, and that will allow us to convert more of our part-time jobs into full-time positions right here in the city of Stillwater. The grant money received from the city of Stillwater has made the path to realizing this dream an obtainable reality. Sometimes all a startup needs is a helping hand to get across the finish line, to which you have given me. So for that, to the citizens of Stillwater and our leadership, thank you very much.
Excellent. That is fantastic to hear, and we really appreciate you coming tonight and letting us know how that's helped. We're glad to be able to do it. All right. That takes us to item 7 on the agenda, public hearings. Item 7A is receive public comment regarding a request for a map amendment to rezone property addressed as 122 East Richmond Road from CG Commercial General to RT Two-Family Residential District. This is CC-20-178. Mr. Dorman, did we have good notice on this item?
Yes, sir.
We did have good notice, so Lance is here to let us know about the issue.
Good evening. Lance Gross, Community Development Planning Manager. Let's see, the map amendment before you tonight is to rezone the property from CG General Commercial to RT Residential Two-Family District. The hatch pattern on the map indicates the subject site, and as you can see, it's north of Richmond and west of Perkins. This aerial view is looking to the northeast, and you'll see Richmond Road down here at the bottom. The yellow boundary indicates the subject site. Sunnybrook Christian Church is located over here, and Richmond Elementary is over here, and North Perkins runs north and south over here. The current CG zoning does not allow for residential uses, and the applicant wishes to construct a one single-family resident home on the 8.9 acre tract. They wanted to rezone the property to something that is contiguous to the site while allowing single-family construction, which RT allows this. The applicant did not want to rezone the property to RSS, which would also allow for single-family residential, because there's no existing RSS nearby, and it looks as though it could have been spot zoning. Are there any questions for staff?
Council, any questions? Take that as a no. This time I will open the public hearing. I don't know that we have anybody signed up to speak, so I will also close the public hearing, and I'll ask.
Nope. Mr.
Oh,
Mayor.
I'm sorry.
This is Kelly.
Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Good. How are y'all?
I'm good.
Good. I did sign up to represent this to you guys. I'm here to represent the owners. I'm located at 923 South Lowry. Lance is exactly right in all the items he went over. We did RSS or RT would have worked fine for us, and RT was already there, and so that's just what we've requested.
All right. Any questions for Kelly?
No, thanks.
All right. Well, I will now close the public hearing. And Lance, let us know what the Planning Commission recommended on this item.
The Planning Commission made a recommendation by a vote of 5-0 for approval.
Thank you, sir. Councilors, any discussion, comments, questions, or motions?
Motion to accept the Planning Commission recommendation to approve the map amendment for the property located at 122 East Richmond Road.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this to approve this item. Teresa, please call the roll.
Mayor Joyce,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Darlington,
Yes.
Councilor Zanotti,
Yes.
Councilor Wedlake,
Yes.
Councilor Jaloski.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, that map amendment is approved. That takes us to item 7B, receive public comment regarding a request for a text amendment to Chapter 23 Land Development Code, Article 13 Overlay Districts, Division 2 Special Purpose Overlay District, amending regulations from Section 23-270 Requirements, Section 23-273 Development Standards, and Section 23-274 Duration of Designation. This is in regard to Streeteries, CC-20-174. Did we have good notice on this item, Mr. Dorman?
We actually didn't notice on this because it's a return item from a previous
Yes, it is.
discussion. We may want to notice moving forward, but we can address that once we decide if this is going to move beyond tonight's action.
Okay. Mr. Gross.
Yes. Let's see, this text amendment will establish the process to allow street eateries in Stillwater. The intent is to create outdoor dining seating areas within on-street parking spaces and/or a portion of the sidewalk. Council directed staff to work with stakeholders, the Chamber of Commerce, and downtown Stillwater to create an ordinance for street eateries. Staff met with groups, gathered input, drafted the ordinance, sent out the review to all the members, and then updated the ordinance and sent it on to Planning Commission. Let's see, we looked at a number of different ordinances, including Tulsa's. The photos you see here are actually from Fayetteville, Arkansas. They had a great example of what they've done there. And let's see, I'm just going to go through a couple of other slides that show examples. The left-hand side is Oklahoma City, Bricktown. The top right is Milwaukee, Oregon. The bottom right is Minneapolis, Minnesota. And this one is Fort Collins, Colorado. Here's a couple of examples of what the existing ordinance will allow here in Stillwater. Let's see, the one on the left-hand side is Aspen Coffee on 7th. And then the one on the right-hand side, I think everybody knows where this one is, it's Granny's on 7th as well. This is what the current ordinance will allow, which is referred to as a sidewalk cafe. And this is Zanotti's on 7th. It's the first street eatery in Stillwater. And you can see a lot of the materials are temporary, and it's the intention of being that way for right now. And the ordinance right now will establish more permanent materials to be used. Now, we've broken this down into 4 categories for street eateries. The proposed ordinance allows the following. Like we have right now, existing sidewalk cafes. Number 2 is temporary use of on-street parking. And this is for, say, game day activities. Some of the properties, commercial properties close to the campus, they have created items or spaces that will be for like 48 hours or so. And the next one is semi-permanent on-street parking. This uses either parking spaces or sidewalks. And these are very much like what you saw on that very first slide that showed the pictures for Fayetteville. And the last one is for off-street parking stalls. And these are private stalls that are located within commercial districts that are not public. It's basically within like a strip shopping center. So, and I can go through each one of these and kind of show you some of the differences. Okay, the next 4 slides will explain the 4 types. This one is a sidewalk cafe. We've expanded the area. Instead of just a couple of specific areas, we've included all the commercial districts and the T5 and T6 districts. And other areas can be designated by City Council as well. This one is a temporary on-street parking, and this is, like I mentioned previously, for game day type activities. The maximum allowed time would be 48 hours. You know, people set up on Friday night or early Saturday morning for, you know, the Saturday game. It's also expanded for the commercial districts in T5 and T6. And we have a maximum speed limit of 25 miles an hour, just to provide a little limitation or restriction. The next one is the semi-permanent on-street parking. Let's see. Like I mentioned previously, it's very much like what's done in Fayetteville. It's a little more permanent and requires a short-term lease with the city. These leases are typically 6 months and can be renewed. It's for commercial zoning in T5 and T6, 25 miles an hour again, and it utilizes the public parking space or the sidewalk. And this is the semi-permanent off-street parking. This is the one that's located or would be located within the commercial strip center. We've gone up to 45 miles an hour. These spaces are typically not adjacent to the roadway. They're up, you know, adjacent to the structure. And we've also included the commercial districts in the T5 and T6. Are there any questions for staff?
Councilors?
Lance, thank you very much for involving everyone and including all the things. The only thing that was a little bit confusing to me is when you call these temporary parking or you know, semi-permanent parking. I mean, it just makes me think of a parking place instead of a parklet or eatery on the street, but it sounds like you did a very nice job of capturing all the different possibilities.
Thank you, and we can adjust the language. We can look through there and adjust that.
Well, it's just in the titles, Lance, because, you know, in the description, it's, you know, temporary on-street parking stalls may be licensed for restaurant and bar table service, but when you just hear the title, temporary on-street parking, it might just have been your slides.
Yeah. Okay.
Lance, could you just talk a little bit about how the process for, you know, how we determine or how it will be determined how many parking spaces might be allotted for each of these, just kind of what that, I so appreciate like the examples of what that looks like. I'm just trying to think, you know, specifically in Stillwater, kind of what that looks like. How many spaces did Zanotti's take for their space that they've been doing so far, and how has that worked? And has there been any challenges with parking and things like that?
Certainly. The way the ordinance is set up right now, the parking spaces that they can utilize are located within the front portion of their business. So, and you know, we basically go at a right angle and just, you know, determine from that point. If they want to expand that, they have to get the permission of the adjacent property owner to go or to encroach in somebody else's space adjacent. So that's you know, that's established in the ordinance, just in case something like that comes up. For Zanotti's, I believe they have 2 spaces, maybe 3 possibly, that they've taken up. And I believe they worked with the adjacent property owner to make sure that they did not encroach. They may right now, but that's something that they've discussed with the adjacent property owner.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it was, I know we've had I know on the Strip in particular, I think there's concern over parking and just making sure that we're talking with neighboring businesses and making sure that works out for everybody, I think is important for folks to understand as they're listening and trying to understand the ordinance.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Lance, does this ordinance talk anything about what the structure looks like or design or anything like that, or does that come at a later date?
It does discuss the materials that can be utilized for the actual structure. It's a little bit different from the temporary. The temporary is a little less permanent. They can use, short, movable fences, but the materials are generally the same. The more permanent use will actually, they want to make sure that the materials are weatherproof and also durable. So yeah, we will definitely go through the review process and make sure that they do meet those.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm wondering, Lance, the examples that you gave were really very attractive and appealing. And when this is on our city website, would you include those examples?
Yes, we can. We can definitely do that.
I think that with the application, and the application is online, Lance?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we discussed the idea of doing a pamphlet as well to kind of show and give examples of what citizens can do, because we want to make sure that obviously it's done properly and it's aesthetically pleasing, and to show people also that it's done elsewhere.
So the way this is written gives the city manager some discretion if there's too many, if there's not enough parking spots, or if there's going to be a parking issue, there's some discretion here. It doesn't give the property owner the absolute right to do this. Is that correct? I mean, there will be a review process, and potentially it would potentially not be approved if parking issues or something along those lines were a problem?
Yeah, that is correct. Yes.
Okay. And the same, I assume, with design. If the design doesn't meet standards, if it doesn't live up to the intent of the ordinance, then there's discretion for those as well.
Definitely, yes.
Councilors, other questions?
No.
Mr. Dorman, you mentioned that we may potentially notice this going forward. What is your expectation of what that process would look like?
We can go ahead and clean this up and get it to you for a first reading. And between the first and second reading, we can notice. And then before the second reading, you could have a second public hearing just to make sure there isn't anything that's out there. And then, so that second reading could be held the first meeting in December, and we could move this thing forward at that point.
Is this on for reading tonight?
No.
Did we do the first reading?
We haven't done a first
We
reading.
haven't did that. I'm trying to figure out where we are in this process.
We actually, if you'll recall, we actually decided at that meeting to move the authority to do those parklets into the
Yes.
Proclamation that you have pending right now.
So we had it on for a hearing, but we just moved
Yes.
it. Yeah, okay. I remember now.
But since we've added a couple more categories, we probably ought to go ahead and post the, just to make sure that we've covered everything.
So at this point, we would just we can get this up for first reading
Yes.
coming up at our next meeting. And
First
we'll
read it on the
notice
16th and
Yeah.
second read it, and we can hold the hearing and second read it on the in the first meeting in December.
Okay.
And then move forward at that point.
Would we keep the temporary one in place until this thing's
Yes.
all up and running? Okay.
That proclamation is good until November 30th, so we would have to probably extend the proclamation, but that's a relatively minor detail.
Okay. So we don't have any particular action necessary on this tonight?
If you want to go ahead and vote to direct us to go one way or the other, that would be helpful. Or if you just say move forward, then we'll bring it back when it's ready for first reading. We can do it either way.
Counselors, any further comments or suggestions on what you'd like to do?
I would like to do whichever gives us the quickest turnaround.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a recommended motion to approve the land development text amendment, but that doesn't really do anything, does it?
No, the ordinance is the actual amendment.
Yeah. So I'd say let's have it on for first read next meeting, and
That'll be
we'll take
fine.
it from
And
there.
we'll make the adjustments that you and the vice mayor had suggested with regard to the title and so forth to make sure that it's consistent internally.
Anything further, council? Thank you, Lance. Thanks for all the work you guys have done to put this together. All right, we'll move to item 7C. Receive public comment regarding a request for text amendment to Chapter 23 Land Development Code, Article 5, Use Categories and Limitations, Division 1 generally, Section 23-137 RSS Small Lot Single Family Residential, and Section 23-153 CG Commercial General District. This is CC-20-175. Did we have notice on this, Mr. Dorman?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gross.
Yes. Let's see. This text amendment came about after discussions with the board members for Fairlawn Cemetery. The purpose of this is to bring the existing use of the property into compliance and develop safeguards for existing and future cemeteries here in Stillwater. This is an aerial view showing that the cemetery is zoned RSS, residential small lot single family. And let's see, the cemetery is essentially a landmark on the east side of 6th Avenue. Let's see. Okay, the cemetery has potential to relocate the maintenance barn and to create a central gathering place. Right now, the way that it sets, the maintenance barn and office is located right here in the center. Okay, board members came to staff with a proposal, and at that point, it was determined that a cemetery use is not permitted in any zoning district within the city of Stillwater, which is typical of a lot of cities.
Really? There's no cemetery listed as a use?
Correct.
That's just, I mean, I just don't understand that at all. Why would that be the case? All right.
Yeah. So we worked with the board members to come up with a solution. The intent is to add the cemetery use to RSS zoning, but only with an SUP, a specific use permit. The cemetery use would also include accessory uses. And here is the actual amendment. As you can see, RSS, specific use permits, it lists out all the uses that require a specific use permit, and it would include a cemetery and incidental accessory uses. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Counselors?
I don't know what kind of incidental accessory uses might be, but it's fairly vague. I mean, would that be a crematory or something like that?
It could be anything that's associated with a cemetery. It could be the maintenance facility, a number of different
So
things.
it would have to be attached to an actual cemetery.
That is correct.
Okay.
Are all of, I'm trying to think of other cemeteries in the city limits.
This is the only one
Is this
that
the only one in the city limits?
Yeah. It's
The
been here
one
since,
on, yeah, I guess so. Okay,
I think this one's been here since the late 1800s.
sure. Okay, and it's currently zoned RSS
Correct. Yeah,
for whatever reason.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, is there any value in creating a separate zoning district? I guess we're not going to zone any new cemeteries within the.
Well, not right now, we don't have a zoning designation.
Councilors, any further questions? I will open a public hearing on this item. I don't have anyone signed up to speak, so I will close the public hearing. Lance, is there a planning commission recommendation on this?
Yes, the planning commission made a recommendation to approve this by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you, sir. Councilors?
Motion to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve the Land Development Code text amendment.
Second.
We have a motion from the Vice Mayor and a second from Councilor Wedlake. Teresa, please call the roll.
Mayor Joyce?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Darlington?
Yes.
Councilor Zanotti?
Yes.
Councilor Wedlake?
Yes.
Councilor Jaloski?
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, that recommendation is approved, which I assume also will come back to us in the form of an ordinance.
You'll be here on the 16th.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. That takes us to item 8, general orders. 8A is approved professional services agreement between City of Stillwater and Mead and Hunt to complete a master plan update for the Stillwater Regional Airport, CC-20-170. Mr. Paul Priegel.
Good evening. Paul Priegel, Airport Director, and tonight I bring before you consideration a contract between Mead and Hunt and the City of Stillwater for a master plan update. And I've approached council about this several times over the last couple of years about the need for our airport to update our master plan. Our last master plan was done in 2008, and typically these are 20-year documents. However, in 2008, looking forward 20 years, our commercial service was not on the horizon, nor was the Western Road corridor that's now slated to eventually come through our property, and also the new OSU Flight Center, which is now relocating to the south end of our airport. And so it's, with all the changes and changes ahead, we've kind of worked ourselves out of our current master plan and need to get it updated so that we can stay on our planning as far as head internally, but also with the FAA to make sure that we get appropriate funding when the time comes. So seeing this process unfolding back in July of last year, we did a competitive selection process and interviewed 3 different companies and ultimately selected Mead & Hunt to do our master plan update. And at the time, we were planning on doing it internally, trying to fund it internally because at the time there wasn't money available. And since that time, we've worked with our FAA program manager, and they have agreed that it is not only necessary, but it is something that they would participate in the funding. So in August 3rd, I brought before you a resolution, and in part that was to make application for federal grant funding for this project. And since that time, we've been working with Mead & Hunt to develop a contract and a scope of service and the fees and all of that. And also, obviously, with the FAA to make sure that our funding is shored up. After all of that is said and done, the total proposed fee for a master plan update is $619,593. We had an independent fee estimate completed and submitted all of this along with the scope and fee proposal to the FAA for final approval, which is required for them to take part in the funding. We received that approval on October 21st, 2020. At this point, we know that this is going to be a 90% funded project, so the FAA will fund 90%. Our anticipated share is approximately $62,000, which through a budget amendment, council approved that this project, we moved $62,000 into this project account back on August 24th. So we have the funds available and ready to be deployed. And so At this time, I would pause for any questions you may have before I make a recommendation concerning this contract.
Councilors, questions? What's your recommendation, Paul?
All right, we would recommend approval of the contract for professional services between the City of Stillwater and Mead & Hunt to perform a master plan update at the Stillwater Regional Airport.
Thank you, sir. Councilors, any questions, comments, or motion on this item?
I would make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the contract for professional services. Teresa, please call the roll.
Mayor Joyce,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Darlington,
Yes?
Councilor Zanotti,
Yes.
Councilor Wedlake,
Yes.
Councilor Jaloski.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, that professional services contract is approved. Thank you, Paul. Once again, bringing us money. So it's a tall order for our next speaker. For item 8B, which is approved purchase of 4 Dodge Durango police SUVs and 2 Dodge Charger police cars from Bob Howard and OKC. Purchase and installation of police equipment from Metro Emergency Upfitters, CC-20-172, Chief Jeff Watts. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilors. For fiscal year 21, Council approved $430,000 for purchasing police vehicles. Back on October the 5th, Council approved spending $26,879 from that budget to combine with the insurance check to replace one of our crashed police SUVs. As a result of COVID, all of our capital projects were temporarily put on hold. When that was released, when CMO released the hold on those capital projects and we started looking around, it became apparent that almost all the police vehicles that are on state bid had already been purchased. So we were able to find 4 Dodge Durangos and 2 Dodge Chargers. That was within a 1,500-mile radius of Stillwater, and we would like to move forward with purchasing those. The Dodge Durangos, those are police Dodge Durangos, fully outfitted, are 233,816. The Dodge Charger below that, there is a typo. It doesn't change the total cost, but it's 47,680, not, or 47,650, not 27,650. And then another a V6 Dodge Charger for 33,367 for a total of 314,833. And there is still funding in our capital projects to cover all of that.
Excellent. Does that mean you're looking for more still?
Yeah, I'm still looking for 2 more.
Okay.
But we're probably going to have to wait until the 2021 models, but they're not going to start the builds. Chargers start in February, so they say, and the Durangos in March with an unknown rollout date on those. But the price did go up for the 21 models, of course. So we're trying to get a hold of the 20s to save some money on that end.
Did you talk to Paul about getting the FAA to pay for 90% of it?
I like that idea. If we could get Paul to help us out, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Chief. Councilors, any questions? Is there a motion? Or I think we have your recommendation, correct?
Yes, sir. Recommendations to approve the purchase of 4 Dodge Durangos and 2 Dodge Chargers from Bob Howard in Oklahoma City, and for the upfitting at Metro Emergency Upfitters in Oklahoma City, with a total cost of $314,833.
Thank you, sir. Councilors?
Motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve these purchases. Teresa, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Joyce,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Darlington,
Yes?
Councilor Zanotti,
Yes.
Councilor Wedlake,
Yes.
Councilor Jaloski.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, that item is approved. Thank you, Chief Watts.
Thank you, Mayor.
While you're here, we extend our thanks to the entire department for the work that you guys have been doing, especially the last week. I know you've been out on a ton of calls with all the ice storms and helping out with getting power back on and keeping people safe and doing all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's great teamwork with all of our other city services. Thank you. I will extend that appreciation.
Thank you. All right. Item 8C, approved bid recommendation to construct a 6-foot sidewalk along the north side of 6th Avenue from King Street to Orchard Street. CC-20-173. Do we have Greg Adams online?
Yeah, Greg should be joining us via Zoom.
We'll give him a second. There he is. You may be muted, Greg.
He's not muted on the Zoom panel. He is up there. No. Maybe just his microphone's not working.
Sorry for the lag.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you are.
Yes.
Okay. Mayor and councilors, thank you for allowing me to present this. I'm Greg Adams with the Transportation, and I'm the Transportation Drainage Manager. And we're bringing to you a sidewalk that we'd like to have installed. And I'll try to share my screen here, see if that works. So in the red there is where we're wanting to add the sidewalk from Kings over to Orchard and create a crosswalk there as well at the signalized intersection. And the reason for this would be that the school, when it expanded, we had to close McFarland Road. And so that created kind of a significant detour. You see this line in blue where where cyclists or pedestrians would come and they'd want to get over to campus and they'd come across to the north. Well, either you have to go against the one-way traffic on Kings, which is one-way traffic to the south, or you go all the way around to Willis and then up toward campus and in. So BPAC, the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, approached us about building this sidewalk on the north side of 6th Avenue from Kings to Orchard. And so we looked at that, and we looked at options going along the east side of Kings, widening that or creating a sidewalk or a path along there, but there just are a lot of challenges to that, and it's actually just slightly longer than going over to Orchard. So, and along Orchard, it's a pretty clear path. We've got the right of way, and we can move most of the sidewalk away from the street. So we feel like that was the best location. And so that allows people to come again from the south and from the west and come to that one. That's the only signalized intersection from Western to Monroe. So that allows people to cross safely at that intersection. And then take that sidewalk that we're proposing, and that gets them to Orchard, and then from there they can go north and east and wherever they need to go. So we feel like that one block would be a very strategic place to put a sidewalk that would benefit just a number of people and help our bike and ped paths and routes to various places, particularly up to the college. So I think that's it in a nutshell. We received 4 bids. The low was from TRW Enterprises out of Tulsa for $61,869. And so, are there any questions?
Councilors, questions on this item?
I have a question about the bids, Mr. Adams. There's quite a spread there, And I'm just I noticed that, LOP is doing work further east than this area, but have you worked with TRW before?
We have not. I did call them and got kind of a background on their company, and they do a lot of work around, and mainly parking lots and sidewalks that go with it, the curb and gutter and so forth. So they do a lot of work and for Walmart. So they've been with them for about 30 years. So we feel confident they can do the job. And that was, you can see that was very near our estimate. So so I think it's a responsible bid.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, there's on that side of the street, on the north side of 6th, that blue section that's there of sidewalk in front of the school.
Yes.
I know that's there, but really from Western to Monroe, is there anything else on the north side of 6th? Would this be the only other section?
You can see just a little sidewalk to the right side of my drawing there, about half a block over there west of Walnut. So we'd have to go that far to tie into something, another sidewalk. I think there is some on further to the east, but this,
not much.
Without doing a lot, and we feel like this is a good, good. The limits of this is good.
Eventually, with the planned reconstruction of 6th Street, I know we're not that far into the planning and design with ODOT of them reconstructing that, but I would assume that we'll be talking about full sidewalks on both sides when that's reconstructed. Do you know?
Yes, that's right. That's correct.
And this, we'll have this. I mean, that's what, 5, 6, 8 years away. I'm not sure what we're looking at several years. So
yes,
we'll get a lot of good use out of this in the meantime. And then, of course, they would have to replace it if they mess it up when they come through to do 6th Street, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And it probably would, just likely it would get taken out as part of that reconstruction, but they would build it back.
Okay.
Well, I'll commend BPAC and staff on coming up with a solution, because as somebody that frequents that area on a bike, it is treacherous to have that one place to cross, and then you're forced with having to backtrack back down 6th Street or right against the one way there on King. So I'll personally be looking forward to the completion of this project, and I think it'll help improve some of that foot traffic and bicycle traffic, make it a little less treacherous. So well done to you guys on this.
Yeah, as someone who drops kids off over there most mornings.
Yeah,
that corner is always, I'm always wondering, because there are kids that sometimes are coming from that direction too in the morning, and there's not a good place to get them across. So definitely much needed. Counselors, any other questions on this? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept staff recommendations to award unit price contract to TRW Enterprises for their bid for $61,869, plus a 15% contingency of $92.80 to construct a 6-foot 6-foot sidewalk along the north side of 6th from King Street to Orchard Street. Do I need to read the rest of it?
Why not?
Why not? Authorize funding not to exceed $71,200 from the fiscal year 18 pavement management program, and authorize the city manager to sign the contract.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this project. Teresa, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Joyce?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Darlington?
Yes.
Councilor Zanotti?
Yes.
Councilor Wedlake?
Yes.
Councilor Jaloski?
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, that item is approved. Thank you to Greg Adams and the team over in transportation, and to the BPAC for finding a good solution to that problem. All right, that takes us down to item 9, which is ordinances. On first read, we have ordinance 3460, an ordinance closing the south 2 feet of an existing 20-foot utility easement located on lots 1 to 4 and lots 6 to 8, replat of Block 6, East Ridge Second Section on property addressed as 1004 East Swim Avenue, 1010 East Swim Avenue, 1014, 1108, 1116, 1122, and 1204, all on East Swim Avenue. This is an item we approved at a prior meeting. Councilors, questions, comments, or a motion on this ordinance?
Motion to advance ordinance 3460 to second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance the ordinance to second read. Teresa, please call the roll.
Mayor Joyce,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Darlington,
Yes.
Councilor Zanotti,
Yes.
Councilor Wedlake,
Yes.
Councilor Jaloski.
Yes.
With a vote of 5 to 0, ordinance 3460 is moved to second reading. On second reading, we have ordinance 3459, an ordinance amending the Stillwater City Code by amending Chapter 37 Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, Article 3 Utility Cuts and Driveways, Division 2 Licensing, Permitting, Insurance, and Indemnification, to amend Section 37-101 Standing Permit Conditions. Councilors.
I would make a motion to adopt ordinance 3459.
Second.
I think you guys are just delaying for the fun of it at this point. There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 3459. Teresa, please call the roll.
Mayor Joyce,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Darlington,
Yes.
Councilor Zanotti,
Yes.
Councilor Wedlake,
Yes.
Councilor Jaloski.
Yes.
With a vote of 5 to 0, that ordinance is adopted. Item 10, reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman.
Nothing to report tonight, sir.
Mr. McNichol.
Yes, sir. I'd like to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that is our number one asset here at the city and our employees. And I think probably the way to start this is to say I'm ready for 2020 to be over, and I'm sure they are too. Let me just apologize to any of our employees that are listening up front because I'll probably miss somebody, but all of this started with COVID back in earlier in the year, and dealing with all of those issues and the masks and distancing and some people working from home and that kind of thing. And then we have, in the last week, an ice storm of epic proportions. And in the time that I've lived in Stillwater, the worst one that I have seen in terms of damage to our electrical system. And prior to that storm, we had street crews out that were sanding and salting the streets, and they were working with ODOT to keep traffic moving. And then the tree branches began falling, and that damaged a significant part of our electrical system, and we had 8,000 people out. And within 24 hours, they got that down to 1,600 people, and the difficulty began. And we had, again, street crews out clearing the streets of damaged trees. We had house fires that probably the proximate cause was the electrical outages. We had a couple of rescues from that. The police were working crashes like crazy. Staff here at City Hall was dealing with 6,000 phone calls from some not so happy people sometimes. At any rate, and we're making plans to haul away tons and tons and tons of debris that is scattered throughout the city. And as a reminder, you can take that to Wittenberg Park during the day, and otherwise we will begin coming around with a grappling machine and removing that on the 14th, I believe. But all of that was accomplished. As people know, there are significant outages in the Oklahoma City area still, 160,000 plus. They're expecting to maybe get that on those back Tuesday. We did that Saturday, with the exception of those houses where there was internal damage, when trees hit the lines and actually pull some of the wiring out of the house or remove it from the side of the house. where a private electrician has to be brought in, and they're still working with those today. But all of our departments, and there were several major water breaks, probably because of the freezing weather. So all of our people in some form or fashion were involved in responding to that, and I'm just proud as I can be of them.
Absolutely. Amen. It was quite a week last week, and everything I heard from folks, I got several messages by email and Facebook and phone calls from folks that all they wanted was for me to say thank you to the city crews that helped get their power back on or clear their driveway off or get somebody out of a bad situation. So it was I think what we've been dealing with this year and having to figure out how to work together, and our city folks that do such a great job serving their neighbors here in our community, just preparing them for more and more opportunities to respond, right? So when this thing hit, it was sort of okay, this is just the next thing in 2020, and they jumped in and really performed heroically in many respects, and can't say how much we appreciate all the crews that have been out. The folks repairing lines on Wednesday and Thursday, it was still pouring rain.
Miserable weather.
It was 32 degrees, 34 degrees out while they were doing that. So really appreciate the work that they've done.
And many of those folks knew they had damage to their own homes and came to work anyway. So very, very pleased with it.
Absolutely. All right, counselors. Anything else to report? Is there a motion to adjourn the city council meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Delay this a little bit.
I'm sorry?
We should delay making this motion.
I heard a motion.
Second.
And a second. We have a motion and a second to adjourn the city council meeting. Teresa, please call the roll.
Mayor Joyce?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Darlington?
Yes.
Councilor Zanotti?
Yes.
Councilor Wedlake?
Yes.
Councilor Jaloski?
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, the city council meeting is now adjourned. This time I will call to order the Stillwater Utilities Authority meeting for November 2nd. On the consent docket tonight, we have special meeting minutes from October 19th. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Teresa, please call the roll.
Chair Joyce?
Yes.
Vice Chair Darlington?
Yes.
Trustee Zanotti?
Yes.
Trustee Wedlake?
Yes.
Trustee Jaloski?
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. Takes us down to item 5A, to approve the Stillwater Utilities Authority annual financial report for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. Christy Cluck is online to give us more information.
Good evening, Christy Cluck, Finance Director. And in your packet this evening is the SUA annual financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2020. This report has been audited by the audit firm VT & Co. out of Topeka, Kansas. And that audit firm did render an unmodified opinion on the report, which is the best type of opinion that can be issued. That opinion letter can be found on pages 3 and 4 of the financial report. Also included in your packet is the audit communication letter from the audit firm, and that letter is addressed to the city's audit committee as well as the SUA trustees. So this is a required communication letter to the governing body, and it discloses things such as any difficulties encountered by the audit firm during the course of the audit, the responsibilities of the audit firm as well as of city management, and then any significant items or estimates that were used in the preparation of the report. There were no unusual or significant items noted in the communication letter. The city's audit committee met on October 20th to hear a presentation from the audit firm on the contents of this communication letter. And it is the city's audit committee's recommendation that the trustees approve the SUA annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2020. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Trustees?
No question. Thank you for your good work.
You're most welcome.
It is always a good thing to see an unqualified opinion come back from the auditors. For those of you who maybe don't understand how that works, all these accounts and the Utilities Authority in the city are audited on a regular basis every year to make sure that they're presenting these financial reports fairly and accurately. And it's always great to see our financial team do such a great job in keeping those statements and get those reports back like this one. So we do really very much appreciate the hard work by our financial team here at the City of Stillwater. Is there an action or a motion on this item, trustees?
Motion to accept the Audit Committee's recommendation to approve the SUA annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the audit report. Teresa, please call the roll.
Chair Joyce,
Yes.
Vice Chair Darlington,
Yes.
Trustee Zanotti,
Yes.
Trustee Wedlake,
Yes.
Trustee Jaloski.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, that financial report is accepted. Item 5, thank you, Christy. Item 5B is presentation by LM Vetter Consulting on distributed generation. Mr. Lawrence Smith, how are you tonight?
I'm excellent. Thank you all for the kind words. Quite a rough week last week, but as you mentioned, all the electric crews, including the electric department, work day and night to make great things happen. So we greatly appreciate all of your support.
Well, we appreciate all of your work.
Thank you. Good evening, trustees. Lawrence Smith, Electric Utility Director. In April of 2018, we created a new distributed generation rate. Since then, we have heard many customers' concerns about the rate, and so to address these concerns, we have contracted with LM Vetter Consulting to review the rate design, educate the public about the rate design, as well as look at available options if there are others. Lisa Vetter is here tonight to provide information about the rate and discuss our path forward, which includes a DG rate design virtual public workshop on Thursday, November 12th at 5:30 that she will talk about more. So with that, I will pass it over to Lisa.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to share my screen. And I don't see how to do that, and I don't see myself either.
Do you see a video, start video over on the left and then a start?
Yep, there we go. Okay.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah.
Good evening. It's nice to see everyone. How do I share my...
Do you see a green share screen button at the bottom?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Can everyone see that?
Not yet.
Whoop. Okay. So everyone can see that okay?
No, we can't see it quite yet.
Oh, Let's see. Oh, I see. I'm messed up. There we go.
There it is.
Technology. So, okay. Well, thanks everybody. It's great to be back virtually in Stillwater. I was involved in your cost of service study about a year ago, 6 months ago, and I'm really excited to be working with your team at Stillwater again. So it won't be a very long presentation tonight, but I just want to give you an idea of what's going on, an overview of the current tariff, stakeholder feedback, and then just a little bit of background, because I know that people all think they know about distributed generation, but there's some, differences in types of technology, differences in how you charge for that technology, And that creates a lot of confusion. So just so we're all on the same page. And that's a part of the workshop's goal, is to educate stakeholders in Stillwater so that they understand how the utility recovers its costs and how distributed generation fits into that system. So again, I'm Lisa Vetter. I met you all a little over a year ago. I'm an expert in cost of service and rate and utility finance and lots of different things. I have a master's from Harvard and my undergrad's in industrial engineering from Madison. So to give you a little bit of, the current tariff was released or became effective April 16th, 2018, technically called a buy-all, sell-all. And frankly, it's a state-of-the-art rate design. You probably couldn't have chosen a better rate design from a technical standpoint, and I'll explain why that is in a few slides. Unfortunately, it was not endorsed by the public or people who want to put solar panels on their roof. And I think in part because there's a lot of misunderstanding in the industry about how utilities pay for serving you and how solar panels play into that. So when I was approached to assist in this effort, I realized that really what needs to happen for this to be a successful outcome for everyone in Stillwater is a dialogue, so that we can provide technical information and resources to the citizens and stakeholders in Stillwater, and they can provide feedback. Because there is no one answer or one size fits all. It's all about who pays for what, how you recover those costs, and ultimately transparency. So everybody understands how it works. Because once people understand, then there's a lot more endorsement. They may not agree with the outcome, but if they understand it, then they can buy into it. So the path forward is we have a public Zoom workshop set up for next Thursday, a week from Thursday. And then after that, we'll be issuing a survey. We also, the PR team at Stillwater has done a great job of putting up a website, and it's on the slide on the right, so that people can start to get involved in the process, can interact, can provide feedback, and we're going to have resources like this meeting and the rate session that went on last Monday. And then based on all that information, we're going to come back to you with recommendations. So distributed generation is simply an energy producing source sited typically at the consumer's site. It can be on either side of the meter. It can be what's called behind the meter, which is where the utility never really is involved with the energy source, or it can be on the utility side of the meter. Typically, it's thought of as solar panels, but there are small wind systems. There's a couple other technologies out there that count as distributed generation, but by and large, people, think solar panels on my roof when they think distributed generation. And when you're talking about distributed generation, really, there might be shades of gray, but there's two basic tariffs that are used to deal with distributed generation. One is called net energy metering, and that was the initial way that distributed generation was dealt with when it first emerged, probably back in the 70s, I would say. And then the more modern version is called a buy-all, sell-all. And that's what you have right now. I think you started with a net energy metering situation, but then when you revised it, it's now considered a buy-all, sell-all. And that's also known as a value of solar, and I'll explain why that is shortly. But basically, under a buy-all, sell-all, you separate the transaction. You treat the solar panels on your customer's house as a little power plant that you purchase the power from. And on the flip side, the retail relationship with the customer remains the same. So they buy all their power from the utility, and then they sell all their power to the utility, and it's two separate transactions. And so the next slide kind of shows, I'm a very visual person, so this is what happens technically when you're using net energy metering. This yellow, I don't know if you can see the yellow circle, that's supposed to be a meter. So under net energy metering, the solar produced, some of it is used on site. You know, we have that little light bulb with electrical things. And then the excess is actually goes through the meter back into the utility system. And those are the green arrows. And then the red arrows are, you know, the sun goes down, you need power, you're going to buy that from the utility. And so net energy metering is a rate structure that nets out the two transactions. It acts like they're equal transactions. Buy all, sell all, on the other hand, as I said, separates the transactions. So you see on the right, in the red arrows, the relationship between the customer and the utility stays the same. All the power that they use in their house comes from the utility through their meter and is paid for at a retail rate. Separately, the solar panels are like a little power plant, and the green arrows show, you know, they produce power, it goes through a different meter and is put into the grid. So that's how a buy all, sell all works, and that's exactly what you have now for distributed generation. At the end of the day, it's about paying for cost. And so this graphic kind of shows under the different, and I used a residential tariff, and I used information from your recent cost of service study to kind of show what happens when you use net energy metering if you're not charging 100% cost of service based rate. So on the left, and this 12 cents per kilowatt hour is a ballpark number. Like, don't take the number itself. It's based on an assumed use of 815 kilowatt hours a month. But, you know, so the number isn't precise. It's the general relationship between rates. So on the left, you have what your cost of service showed you. The yellow at the top of the bar is the variable energy cost. Under that, the gray bar represents the fixed portion of your purchase power cost. And since you buy all your power from Grand River Dam Authority, a portion of that represents transmission. It's a bundled service, but part of it, you know, is more fixed. The blue bar below that is your cost of distribution. That's also a fixed cost. And then you have the fixed customer cost in the lighter green at the bottom. So of that far left bar, really the only truly variable energy is the yellow part of it. If you move one to the right, that's your current residential rate. And you can see that you recover a very small portion of your cost through that fixed customer monthly charge. The bulk of your costs are recovered through your energy charge. When you move over to your buy all, sell all tariff, you see that basically the way the tariff's designed, you're made whole on your fixed cost. You know, the yellow part changes with the amount of usage. So when the person's, you know, not using that anymore, or if they are, it doesn't matter because you're made whole. Under the full retail net energy metering, where you're, you know, giving the person 100% retail credit for each kilowatt hour, you create a problem because your customer charge is so low relative to your fixed monthly charges. And so you're potentially losing money on every kilowatt hour that customer doesn't buy from you, because when you set rate, you know, you've assumed that level of sales and fixed cost recovery in your rate setting, which, you know, happens independently. So, you know, not only does excess solar generation create, you know, cost problems and cost shifting, the power that you had planned for them to buy and baked into your rate is now not recovered. So really, it's a question of When you move to a different rate structure, if you want to go with net energy metering, perfectly fine to do that, then you have to decide how are you going to recover that fixed cost component. And then this is just an overview of the outline. We are at the presentation November 2nd today. The public workshop's on the 12th. The survey will run after that, and ultimately, if everything goes as planned, we will be refining the tariff based on feedback, publish it again so people can react to it one last time before we bring it back to the trustees tentatively sometime in late January. And again, the Speak Up Stillwater website is waiting for input. So does anybody have any questions?
Trustees, any questions?
Thank you for that explanation of the two different types. I'm wondering if in the information that you share with the citizens, if there are other cities similar to ours who use buy all, sell all, or net metering. Is it probably hard to compare because nothing is apples to apples, but I would be curious what cities in our area use either one of those tariff.
We were planning on including Central Rural, I think they don't have the rural anymore, Central Electric Co-op, because they've come up in several conversations, and so we do, and they do have net energy metering. It's not exactly the same because they're under a different regulatory regime, but we were going to use them as one example.
Great, thank you.
Lisa, under the net energy, the net energy, what was the term?
Metering.
When we're not because our cost of service or our customer charge is so much below our actual fixed cost of service, under that kind of a regime, basically that puts, for that solar customer, their customer that has a solar panel, let's say, on their house, everybody else in the system is basically subsidizing their cost of service, right, to keep them connected to the grid. That's how that ends up playing out.
In the short term, yes, absent, rate redesign. So, for example, it's somewhat a factor of penetration. Like if one or two people on your system have solar panels, it's kind of lost in the noise. It'll work itself out. But once you start to get a lot of penetration, then it becomes a question of cost shifting or, not recovering enough revenue to meet your cost.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the discussion when we started talking about net, or started talking about buy all, sell all, was the concern about especially larger accounts shifting to solar and potentially taking a net energy metering approach when you have large customers, subsidizing their bills with solar. That becomes a concern, right? Being able to recover enough cost to maintain the system.
Right, and if you were at full cost of service, again, it wouldn't be an issue because you'd be recovering your fixed costs. I know that in the study that we just conducted, your residential customer charge is less than $10 a month right now. I think you'd be looking at like $50 a month in fixed costs, and don't quote me on, but that's ballpark.
And that's part of what Lauren, in terms of the rate study and what we discussed a couple weeks back, shifting more, trying to readjust the way we do our billing so that more of it is captured in that customer charge and less of it being placed on the burden of the actual energy charge.
Yes, very much so. We're reallocating we're putting the the fixed cost on its spot and the variable cost in its spots.
Okay. And so that will have an effect on how this the distributed generation rate functions, right? I mean, it makes sense that we may need to adjust it because we're adjusting the underlying rate structure overall.
Well, under the buy all sell all that you have right now, there would be no adjustment required because it's completely separate. Like the sales transaction is different than the retail.
Yeah.
You know, so that's one of the benefits of the tariff that you actually have. Now, you're not alone. I mean, this is, consumers want net energy metering for obvious reasons. And, utilities want buy all, sell all because, so it's a good opportunity to, discuss who should pay for this. And there really are no right or wrong answers. I've done a study for a client out in Los Alamos, New Mexico. And originally, they have a lot of solar penetration. And originally we recommended a wires charge, a fixed charge for their net energy metering customers. And they set up a citizens advisory board to study the issue because there was a lot of pushback to the fixed monthly charge. And in the end, after a year of studying, they decided to go that route. But it was all about education, really. It's like if people understand the costs and how they work, then they're much more willing to accept paying, their reasonable share.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good point. In that the education piece here is that when you put solar panels on your house, there still has to be a grid that's connected to that, and that infrastructure costs money, and so the education piece there being that you're not on your own little island when you have solar panels on your house. You still have some connection to a grid, and that that all of that infrastructure costs money. So I think that's kind of what the issue we've run into here, at least with the people I've talked to, is that understanding maybe is not fully there. And so when you talk about rate structures and moving pots of money around, or how the charges are divvied up on an itemized bill, it's important to understand that infrastructure still costs money. So.
Well, and in my experience, I teach a lot of classes, and I spend a lot of time scolding my clients who are utilities because our bills are kind of lying to them. Like for most residential customers, if they look at their bill, if they looked at their City of Stillwater bill, it says, oh, my fixed cost is $9.80 and my energy cost is 10 cents. And so if I put solar panels on my house, I'm going to save 10 cents. I mean, that's what we tell them in the bill. So a lot of utilities are moving towards changing how they present information on their bill to make it a little less misleading. And then you've got the solar energy feeding into that misinformation.
Well, this sounds like a good process, and certainly seems like we're on the right track to get folks involved and engaged and educated on what we're doing and moving towards the best possible rate structure for the City of Stillwater. Trustees, any other questions or comments on this? Lisa, anything further that we need to know at this point? No? Lauren, further comments?
No, sir. No.
All right. Well, we appreciate, Lisa, you being here and giving us the overview at this point, and look forward to hearing how the public session goes and seeing some more of the information in the surveys and moving forward on the issue.
Well, I appreciate being back. I really enjoyed working with Stillwater, and your team's amazing. So thank you very much.
We agree. Thank you. Okay. I think that completes item 5B. That will move us. Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate it. That will move us to item 6. Reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman.
Nothing, sir.
Mr. McNichol.
One item, sir. I think if we look at what's been happening in the last few weeks, we've seen our rate of COVID infections kind of go down and up and move around. But something that is a bit concerning is the number of hospitalizations and the age of those folks that are being hospitalized and put into ICU. That has really taxed the medical center, and the city is not immune from that. And I think all of us need to keep in mind that those ages appear to be going down, those folks that are having significant problems. And as I said, the city's not immune, and we've probably been remiss in not kind of talking about that before. But I would ask everybody that we have one employee, and obviously I can't say a whole lot because of HIPAA regulations, but pretty fit individual, and is seriously ill. And I would ask that not only that employee, but everyone that has been hospitalized over this disease be kept in everybody's thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, absolutely. Trustees, anything further? Is there a motion to adjourn the Stillwater Utilities Authority?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the Utilities Authority. Teresa, please call the roll.
Chair Joyce,
Yes.
Vice Chair Darlington,
Yes?
Trustee Zanotti,
Yes.
Trustee Wedlake,
Yes.
Trustee Jaloski.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, the Utilities Authority is now adjourned. At this point, I'll call to order the Stillwater Economic Development Authority meeting for November 2nd. Item 2 on the docket is consent with special meeting minutes from October 19th. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent docket?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Teresa, please call the roll.
Chair Joyce,
Yes.
Vice Chair Darlington,
Yes?
Trustee Zanotti,
Yes.
Trustee Wedlake,
Yes.
Trustee Jaloski.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket's approved. Our only agenda item for tonight is the Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Quarterly Report from Mr. Justin Mingus.
Good evening, everybody. I was wondering if I was going to go before or after the Utility Authority, and I was actually kind of glad I went after because that was pretty fun to listen to. I know a lot of people will probably think, well, you guys are dorks like me and like stuff, or you wouldn't be counselors. But tonight's meeting was pretty cool to have John Barry start off the meeting thanking you all for what you've done for assisting and his vision for technology. Sorry, I got a little echo here. I'm going to beat that down here. But you know, his want to turn this into a technology hub, that was really exciting. To see Lance talk about streeteries and going to really cool, unique concepts to dine on the sidewalks and parking stalls was really cool. The mundane passing of $71,000 to create a sidewalk by Westwood to help kids get across. And of course, John Wedlake, because we don't need Councilor Wedlake getting hit by a car over there.
Thank you, sir.
And then distributed generation power. I mean, that was like, you checked every box tonight, I think, for all of the dorks watching tonight. I'm sure there's a couple of them out there that really got excited too. So thank you for letting me be a part of that. As part of my normal presentation, you guys have the Excel document. And every time I send that, I think, Will, you and your team cringe at the lack of creativity in the data visualization. I apologize for that every time. But you've got the Excel sheet and then just the quick, 1.5 page, I guess, little recap that I provide as well. To get into the numbers, RFP activity was light for most of the quarter, but it definitely started to pick up towards the end. And then the current quarter we're in, which the numbers are reflected obviously for October and November, the trend has definitely picked up. We had 27 RFPs, responded to 17. And as I sent this to you guys about 2 weeks ago, we had 18 active. We've actually had a couple fall off, unfortunately, that we lost on a couple of those projects. Site visit activity remains pretty consistent. So although RFP activities dropped for a bit and is on an uptick, the trend that we've had for the last 2 years is we're seeing projects and responding to projects and getting follow-up from projects that we actually have an opportunity to land, right? And so our site visits have remained pretty high. So we've had 5 site visits this year. That's 5 unique companies looking on the primary job. So that's manufacturing, technology, regional headquarters. And then 1 restaurant site visit, which that one actually took place 60, 90 days ago. And we're still working through to try to get them in a facility downtown that is turnkey and ready for them to happen. Assists remain at a pretty consistent level at 36. And just to, I haven't really talked about assists, at least in this format with you all. The difference between projects and assists, right? A project is when we get either an RFP where someone's asking about, hey, we need X acreage or X square footage of a building and X utility demand. It's a very much a project that needs us to do some research and submit and follow up with them. An assist is usually like a quick hit for us, right? Where we might have somebody call up and say, you know, I've thought about opening a boutique. I need 500 square feet and I'm going to pay $500 a month. What do you have? Right? And so Trenton can quickly send them an email with, these are our 4 opportunities, and start to work with them on how to connect with their property owners, or maybe they just need a connection with a banker or an attorney. And so we can send them those. Those are what we would consider assists. And so that's what makes up those 36 assists as well. And that's just on the economic development side. That doesn't count what Brandon Phillips and the chamber side of the house does regularly from just being a chamber member. These are what we would consider economic development calls. As far as miscellaneous updates, we did have a staffing change the previous quarter. So we brought on a new communications coordinator, Kagan Herrick. Many of you knew Aubrey Bolin. Aubrey left us in July to go pursue her passion of being a marketing and communications coordinator for a school that loves music because she's a music person. So she's at Oklahoma City University right now. And so we added Kagan Herrick. We actually stole her from the university. So I apologize to every university person listening now. But Kagan is already getting plugged in. Sherry Fletcher and crew over there at the city side have been amazing to include her into their bi-weekly COVID-19 response calls. I've introduced her to the entire team over there and are getting her plugged into kind of that relationship that the chamber has with the city and how we can help the efforts. We continue to do some programming, and so I highlighted a couple through our startup Stillwater initiative, and so that's our connection and collaboration with the university as well as Meridian Technology. Early in the pandemic, we did a lot of virtual sessions talking about COVID-19, the response, right? Triaging the immediate need of how do you get your employees and everybody virtual, to how do you make amendments to your facilities to bring people back safely, to HR and legal concerns around, OSHA and all the things that you need to be thinking about as you're bringing, folks back. And they were wildly successful. We had a lot of attendance. We have stopped those and we've transitioned back into kind of more traditional, economic development, thinking about growth. And so we started a new series about a month ago. I dumb it down to our franchise forum, but all the marketing people have a really creative name about called De-risking Entrepreneurship, the franchise model. So it's a lot catchier than franchise forum. But what we wanted to do is showcase restaurant and some non-restaurant franchises that are looking to locate or open up in Stillwater that don't have a franchisee. And we wanted to basically show the playbook to the community to say, hey, here's a business model that is already there, right? The menu's created, the marketing plan's there, they have the layout, they can turnkey you a building in whatever, 90 days. And that's still entrepreneurship, right? You don't have to go ahead and create your own sandwich shop when there's one already on a shelf that you can pay for. And so we've had a couple of those. Most recently, last week we had Tom and Chi. So they were on Shark Tank a couple years ago. It's a Tom tomato cheese sandwiches, right? So melts, so soups and melts. And it's a really cool concept. They'd love to be in Stillwater. So if any of you are looking to open up a restaurant in Stillwater, boy, do I have the deal for you. What's that saying go? Like sign hard, or sign, press hard, sign 3 times. So we had our last one there, Tom and Chi, and then Bank First, one of their SBA lenders out of Oklahoma City, kind of walked through the process of making your deal bankable. What are bankers looking for from you when you come to them with your idea, with your project? Right? How does your personal finances play into your commercial application? What are questions you need to be asking your banker to make sure that you're getting the right deal for this? And it was a fantastic conversation. So go to our website, or actually go to startupstillwater.com. We have 3 more parts of that series left. Next month, it's actually the 3rd Wednesday, so I guess 2-3 weeks from now, we'll have the Oklahoma Restaurant Association. So they're going to talk about what they do for their members, how they can support you. And then Jeremy Bale is going to talk about the TIF. Right, so if you're thinking about opening up one of these restaurants inside the TIF district, he's going to talk about how that group or that committee can support you in getting that application across. Trent and I continue our trek towards certified economic developer. We had in our budget to go earlier in the year to an in-person exam prep course. A lot of you travel for your own day job, and you understand a lot of those were just canceled or pushed off. And so we finally, actually today and tomorrow, are attending one virtually. And so this was the final piece that we had to check off of our list before we could actually sit for the exam. And so we're hoping to sit for our exam in probably mid-21. I don't feel confident that I'm going to get January studying done for the January session, so it'll probably be mid-21 before we go sit for that exam. And then Lemonade Day was in August, which 3 months ago feels like 10 years ago, but we did have Lemonade Day in this cycle of reporting. Obviously, it wasn't what I'd hoped it would be because of the current environment, right? Not a lot of people were looking to go set up lemonade stands where the public were going to be around them. Not a lot of the public wanted to go partake in that, but we did have a few young entrepreneurs that signed up for it and did amazing. And so we learned a little bit through that process of what we want to do for next year as it comes to, or pertains to, like Bank Day and some of the other add-on programming. And so we had it, we loved it, but we're really excited for 2021. Like a lot of you all, I've heard that a few times, I think, today in this meeting. So, but I did want to make sure that Stillwater Medical and Simmons Bank did get the love that they deserve, because they both financially supported and underwrote that program, knowing that it was going to look a lot different this year, but they stood behind their commitment, so I appreciate it. And then kind of finally, as far as the update goes, we're trying to fill a gap on for masks, right? So early on, you all supported the community with allocating some resources to provide free masks for the community. And Visit Stillwater and the Chamber, right, we handed out 60,000 masks in like 48 hours. It was just silly each time we did it. We would continue to get calls from folks asking if we had another round of free masks or what we could do to assist them. And so about 2 weeks ago, I guess, 3 weeks ago, we kind of opened up and tried to get a bulk order in, basically. So any of our members or non-members that need masks and don't want to pay retail rate but would like to get in on a bulk order, we've got a bulk order system set up right now through our website. And then Stillwater Medical has offered to match in some way whatever we can raise through private purchases that they might be able to come alongside us and provide for those that can't support it. So we didn't get the overwhelming order that I'd hoped for, and so we're going to kind of circle back, push pause on this, and talk to Stillwater Medical in a way that maybe we could either come alongside as an organization for Stillwater Medical and subsidize these masks even further to get a price point that makes sense for businesses. Because there's a need. It's just, if you're selling a hamburger and you're making 50 cents or $1 on that hamburger and you need to spend 18 cents on a mask, right? You guys can start to understand it's just one more thing to take into the profit. So I put that on there just as a plug. If you go to our website under our events, there's a mask ordering link on there. Call our office, talk to us about what your need might be, and then we can kind of come up with a creative solution on how we get you those masks. And with that, I'll pause for any questions.
Thank you, Justin. Trustees, any questions?
Man,
I will.
This is what I get for being the last on the agenda. All right, come on.
I don't have a question for you right now, Justin, but I do. I know this is not from this quarter, but I want to brag on you and your team a little bit for last week's site visit. Tuesday morning, we had a prospect supposed to be in from out of town. If you remember, Tuesday morning, it was raining ice, and power was out at the Chamber's offices where the meeting was supposed to be held, and the power was out here at City Hall. But another business here in town stepped up to provide a meeting room, and Justin and Trenton, on very short notice, moved their meeting and their projector and everything over to a different conference room and had the client, the prospect, meet us over there, and I was able to sit down with them for a few minutes and talk a little bit about Stillwater. But they did a whole site visit Tuesday morning while it was icing in Stillwater with a visit with a prospect from out of town that would be a really cool addition to our community if we can get them to come in. And Justin and his team, and then folks from OSU were there. And I mean, it was a really robust community response to a business looking to locate here in probably the worst circumstances that you guys, I'm sure, have done a site visit in a while at least. So really appreciate the hard work you guys put into that and making sure that people who want to be here in Stillwater see that they're going to be supported even when it's icing and the power's out.
Yeah, the power went out 15 minutes before, well, I guess about 30 minutes before the site visit. So yeah, it was very much pick up the phone and started calling everybody I knew that had a conference room that could accommodate. To your point, there was a business north of town that has a beautiful conference room that allowed us in. And for those of you that have kids, right, I felt like I was like running to a baseball game late, right? So I grabbed our projector and my meeting owl and my backpack, and like we scrambled off, but it worked, man. They didn't miss a beat. They were from Michigan and Wyoming, and so to them this was like, whatever. Why are you guys complaining about a little bit of sleep? They were visiting another community in our state that day, and they shared with us what we did for them was far exceeded what they got at the other community. So it was really cool to hear that what we're doing at least is on the front end when it comes to engaging them, bringing them to town, is at least putting us one step ahead of our peers in the state. So our biggest problem is continuing to be, do we have the assets to land them? Because they need a facility that we don't have. And so they're going to have to either repurpose an existing building or think about building to suit, and they're on a quick timeline, and so that doesn't really work. And they need about 10 to 12,000 what we would consider Class A office space. Other communities would probably consider it Class B. But 10 to 12,000 with kind of call center-esque like setup where they could set up pods and things like that. We don't really have that kind of readily available. But thank you, Will, for actually showing up that day too and being a part of that day. Yeah. It's always fun when the mayor shows up and they think we rolled out the red carpet for them.
They think that. Trustees, any further questions for Justin?
I should have said one thing. I apologize. I should have led with this. It's not in the current update, but it's obviously something we're going through right now. John Barry talked about with the applications that you all approved us to take for the $500,000. And so I wanted to give you at least a numbers update real quick on kind of where we stand. So you all approved about $500,000, so up to $5,000 grants. We are doing half grants or portion grants if folks didn't quite have the $5,000 loss. And so we think we might be able to give out more than the 100 applications and still stay within that threshold. So currently we've turned in 84 approved applications to Melissa Ream's team over the last week. Approved, ready to go, paperwork's in order. We have 15 that are in a pending state where we have everything but maybe a notarized form or we can't verify financials what they sent us. So we have 15 kind of in that pending phase that we're asking for additional documentation. We had 2 more submitted today. And then we have 11 that we have declined, which we haven't communicated with them because we're doing one final pass through just to make sure that denial is appropriate, kind of doing a secondary audit. So 11 of those will be denied. And to give you just a little heads up on why, a couple of them are outside of city limits. A couple of them are having issues verifying they were open in 2019 or revenue significant enough in that benchmark period in early 2020 to show the 25% loss. And so that's mostly, why we would have a denial right now. So not that many. I'm happy with only 11, and only being those kind of straightforward. And we're hoping these other 15 that we can get through, this week and get the final, 100 applications over to Melissa Reams and funded. So I know something that we've talked with Melissa and Norman and you all are thinking about is, will we need a round 2 or what would additional funding look like? And as I sit today, I don't have an overwhelming amount of applications that I would say, hey, we need to fund another 150,000 an application. So I guess my plea or ask to the community, if you do qualify where you're inside city limits, have a 25% loss in revenue, fill out the application or just call us and we can help you walk through it. And we can at least get you in this hopper or waiting period so that way I can then come back to you all as council and say, hey, we have 20 more or 15 more, can you approve them? But as we stand today, I don't have that wait list, if you will, that I would come back.
Well, we appreciate the work you and your team have done to get those applications through and to administer that process for us. And the thanks that we got today from Mr. Berry is also directed at you and your team for helping make sure this process happens. So that's a good thing. I'm glad we've been able to get 80 some people so far, at least a little bit of help through this time.
And they've been super appreciative. I mean, the emails that we're getting and phone calls that we're getting from folks, I mean, some people might say it's only 5,000, but for somebody right now that is starting to figure out what does rent look like in November, or to, Mr. Berry's comments around payroll, and I mean, 5,000 goes a long way for a small business. So Thank you.
Good. All right. Anything further? Thanks for being here, Justin. Thanks for bringing up last but not least, right?
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Hey, thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
All right. That takes us to the end of the SEDA agenda. Mr. Dorman, any reports?
Nothing, sir.
Mr. McNichol?
Nothing, sir.
Trustees?
Thanks.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
So motion and a second to adjourn SEDA. Teresa, please call the roll.
Chair Joyce,
Yes.
Vice Chair Darlington,
Yes.
Trustee Zanotti,
Yes.
Trustee Wedlake,
Yes.
Trustee Jaloski.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater Economic Development Authority's meeting is adjourned, and that concludes our meeting.